Okay, so I want to talk to you about Float. Float is a startup that we've been working on for over 2 years. And our vision is to improve the quality of life of the world, population, citizens in it, by building the future global transportation platform that's needed in the future in the cities that we all want to build for ourselves. Our focus is to increase accessibility and personal choices for individuals living in the cities. And we want to reduce the travel time, avoid congestion, reduce pollution, and loss to local GDP. So our mission, what we tell ourselves every day, is we empower travelers to move faster, smarter, and more easily by looking at their data, and analyze their past trips and external factors around them and their neighborhoods, and allow them to customize that travel and receive rewards for sharing that data for the greater good of everybody. So where are we now post-COVID, or in the middle of COVID, or when we're coming out of post-COVID at some point in the future? We know the cities are changing. We know local transportation is changing. What we believe right now is this is accelerating that change. So the market for unlocking personal choice in transport is even more important now, and it's timely now. We know people are somewhat reluctant to use public transport for the time being. They're looking for different options. They're out of their regular routines. They're, for the time being, open to things like cars, like scooters, like personal mobility devices. And we see that change accelerating. The era of the two-car household and poor public transportation infrastructure and the high cost of rideshare is really not enough for people anymore. It's our belief we're not going to go back to that existing structure. We think that was something that people got used to over a number of years and evolved slightly with individual mobility providers, but now it's time for a reset. And so people in urban areas are seeking different ways to look at things, not only just transportation from a public standpoint, but also private asset ownership. And we think the future is in subscriptions, fractional ownership, and different modes and models that we're going to experiment with over the next several years. So what our research tells us, so we've done research to thousands of individuals over primarily US major cities and some in Asian cities as well. And so right now what people are looking for, of course, they want to know what is active, what's open, what's closed, what's the state of their city now, what's the state of their environment, their surroundings now. And they also want to know how can they better customize their travel. So they want to figure out how do they track their spending. Obviously, being in this recessionary environment, spending is key. Spending on local and everyday transportation is the second largest piece of a person's budget, a household budget, next to housing. It's about 15 to 17% of the monthly expenditures of an individual household. And that's consistent amongst almost all rich countries worldwide. And so focus is clearly on savings, but focus on flexibility and customization. And we know that part of how we want to make our cities better is make them greener. And so we're seeing that the greening of the cities and reducing carbon footprint and none of other sharing of assets, things like this ranks very highly from individuals that are residing in these cities now. So what our solution does very quickly is we provide a central app which aggregates all this options. So we collect all your personal data that you choose to share with us. It's all entirely optional. It's as you share as much as you want, and we continuously look at that information, help you create a budget. So our focus is it all comes down to the money, what you can afford to spend. And then from there, we customize it. So how do we help you become greener? How do we help you simplify the decision-making process? How do we give you different options given your lifestyle? It's a changing lifestyle, not necessarily in a 9-to-5 society anymore. And so one of the things that we're really excited about is what we call bundling. In Europe, they call it mobility as a service subscriptions. And this is by all projections to be a massively growing area of the industry in the next 10 years as people look for flexibility on when they travel, how much they pay, and to get some certainty in terms of these are the goals I want to meet, whether it be goals in terms of eco goals or budget goals or flexibility goals or congestion goals or personality goals. And so we feel like customized solutions is really the way forward. And so the way we look at it as we say, under one total budget, users can share assets with people around them, cars, scooters, bikes, etc. and they can coordinate with folks through the app that are living in their condo complex, in their HOA, on their streets, to see when that asset's booked, when it's free, and we can help optimize that schedule. And so the primary draw is really a hassle-free, either fractional ownership, or some people call it potentially fractional leasing, depending how you structure it. So these assets are available when you want it, how you want it. And so that's our belief on how we're going to contribute. And we share back any aggregate data that we have with the cities. And so between the cities and the citizens, we feel like there's a new relationship that we can help bridge between the two groups, and better make use of our public assets, our private assets, our roads, our neighborhoods. So that's, I just had a couple slides, and so I'll turn it back over to you, David, and I will pause the sharing.
Well, thank you. Okay, so clearly you've discovered and are betting on significant changes in the way cities function post-pandemic. So how would you summarize the most significant ways that cities are changing right now, or might not have changed but for the pandemic?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we're seeing clearly during the pandemic is that people have been forced to move outside, right? And so that's one clear example that everyone can see in any city around the world, definitely in North America. And people are understanding that to move about these cities in a safe way and still have some semblance of the lifestyle they had before, that we're going to need to adjust traffic flows, traffic patterns. We're going to need to adjust areas where our kids can play. We're going to need to adjust our recreational styles and habits, and also how we move about. So we may not want to move about as densely packed together. And we feel like that's something that's going to last at least for the next couple of years. We don't think that's going to immediately change if there's a vaccine released tomorrow on the market. We feel like there's a behavioral change that's deeper in there, and we also believe that people have time to reflect on what worked well and what didn't. So when we talk to individuals, when we survey them, they tell us that there's things that they just realized, I didn't realize how much I was spending on rideshare, or I just don't want to go back to that, spending all that time in traffic. I'm going to do something different. And part of people say, well, I'm going to go to the suburbs and I'm going to have, look at the emergence of a Zoom town. So a small town local to the big city, and work there primarily and travel in when I need to travel in. And so there's a number of different things at play, and some of them are more, we don't know, we're not certain yet. And some of them we do know. So for example, we know that people are going to change the traffic and the behavior and the way they eat and travel and move around the cities. And we think there's no indication that that's going to go back to the way it was before.
When you say Zoom town, you mean like the town we're living in right now, kind of thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the Zoom towns, I mean, we follow a lot of real estate trends and work with a lot of real estate experts as well, and analysts, research firms. And what we see is now you're seeing local, co-working facilities that are going from where we used to have the massive WeWorks in the big cities. Now we're seeing that more on a local level, where there's small areas within your town that you potentially could meet in and get together with other individuals. And maybe you need a supplemental working area there. But primarily it's going to be something that's close to your home, and you're going to do it in conjunction with work from home culture, right. And just travel into the cities. And we feel like that there's also the business traveler has been favored over the individual pleasure traveler by the industry over the last several years because of margins and reliability of income. And we feel like that's changing now too. We feel like the rise of personal travel coming out of this pandemic is actually going to lead the industry as opposed to business travel.
I want you to step back a little bit for a second. You were at Mint, Mint has had a big impact. And now you're taking some of that same approach to gamification and appification, the app economy. Mint was sort of an early app economy success, right? I guess what I'd like you to talk about is what you've learned is possible with data, gamification, and apps for essentially optimizing society. I mean, look at this from a philosophical point of view for a minute and just talk to us about what you think is really going to be possible going forward as we're better able to analyze the data and feed it back to people to their benefit?
So part of it is it's incentives, and it's in changing user behavior and changing individuals' behavior. And if we can present a win-win-win situation to individuals where they can save money, get better personal choice, get different customizations, change their behavior to reflect the causes they believe in, whether it be the environment or local economy, and things like this. If we can show them that there's a path there and give them specific tools and apps to be able to do that, then they'll respond to it. They'll respond accordingly. And what we do is we have a reward system built into the app where we just reward you for being the best possible version of you. We don't judge you against other folks so for example, single people are going to have different transportation needs than people with families. And we know that. And so we saw the same in the personal finance with at Mint, is that we looked at, you may have an income of $100,000 and somebody else has an income of $50,000 and someone else has an income of something different. And we realized it's not about you comparing to them. It's about you being the best version of you to be. And so we always said, you can have that latte at Starbucks if you want, but you have to understand that, if you're under a certain budget, you're going to have to cut it out somewhere else, right? So it's all about prioritization, right? Is in terms of where you want to spend. And it's about understanding that everything matters, spending matters. And so we look at that carrying over to transportation and travel. We could say that every one of your decisions matters. It matters not only to your budget, it matters to how the city runs. It matters to if you participate in aggregate data where we respect your privacy. And I've had a long record of respecting and being responsible of using people's data. And so we look at that, if you kind of look at that, sharing of that data with the city, then the city can better make decisions.
And you will do that. You will do that.
Better for you.
You're going to partner with cities.
It's one of our key partners is with cities. And so This is a citizen-city partnership for sure.
Okay, last question. I know entrepreneurs are intrinsically optimistic, but thinking about the kind of thing you just described and looking at like the long-term future of the United States in particular, but look at global society, do you feel more optimistic, you think, than maybe the average person that we can solve some of our problems as apps like this and other services that are data-based get deployed all around us? I mean, have we fallen into too much pessimism here lately? Because it seems like we're in a kind of a pessimistic moment. But you seem like be a big believer. Good things can happen if we use data and sort of be more proactive with our systems.
Well, I think actually this is the perfect storm for cities. This is the perfect storm for us to improve. This is a once in a generational opportunity for us to improve all of our cities globally. We started off by having data.gov and a lot of city initiatives that were sharing data in the last 10 years. And we looked at that in previous startups that I was involved in. But now we have an opportunity to look at how do we want to live in the future? And the cities are changing. And also what's a driving force is people are leaving these cities. So the cities finally are realizing we have to change because we're losing the tax base. We're losing the momentum. We're losing the excitement. We're losing our small businesses that are the vital pulse of the cities. And so no one wants to see all of that go, right? That's clearly across the board. Citizens, people that are working for government, people that are living, people that are visiting these cities, everyone is on the same page. And so it's a rare opportunity that you get an industry where everybody decides to be on the same page and to realize we can improve it, and now is the time. Sure. And in talking about, some of your previous speakers today too, is that there's budget there. There's opportunity, there's money there from a public standpoint. And the public understands that we really need to invest in these places because they're sort of key to our lives. So this is actually now, we have seen certain cities in, Helsinki, for example, or Singapore or New York. And we saw amazing things happen in the last 10 years of those cities to change them. But now we're going to see it across the board, and it's going to really be, there's so much momentum behind. There's no doubt that we're going to see much more livable, brighter city. It's going to be different. Not everybody's going to take the train in and be there at 8:30 in Grand Central and leave at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night. It's going to be different, but they're going to be better. I mean, I truly believe that. I think all the data and it indicates it's going to be a great future for us.
Great, wonderful, upbeat note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us, Stu. Good luck. We'll be using your app. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, everyone.